When I entered the palace as the successor empress, everyone said the little crown prince, born of the late empress, had a perverse temperament and was difficult to get along with. But in reality, when he was late to pay his respects and looked up to see my face clearly, his expression changed slightly.
It was the palace servants who didn't wake me up. It wasn't that I wanted to be late.
I subconsciously frowned, and his face suddenly flushed red. It seemed I had found the correct way to use my wicked supporting female lead face. When the imperial decree to install the empress reached the Xue family, the entire household was utterly astonished. The people of the imperial city all knew the emperor was majestic and cold, did not indulge in female beauty, and rarely set foot in the inner palace. He had only one young crown prince under his knee. Because the crown prince lost his birth mother at birth, the emperor doted on him immensely, spoiling the little crown prince into being violent, arrogant, and domineering. The empress dowager intended to find a mother to guide the little crown prince, but this was a thankless task. Only I felt at ease, even if it meant entering the palace as empress. I did not want to marry Joji again. In my past life, Joji and I were childhood sweethearts. Half a month later, he returned to the capital from investigating a case outside the city and successfully became betrothed to me, preparing for marriage. But I did not want that. As the minister of the Court of Judicial Review, Joji encountered a female physician skilled in autopsies during his investigation. The two worked in perfect harmony. Later, they encountered a murder case by a flower-plucking thief. To catch the real culprit, he conspired with that female physician to deliberately leave a vulnerability on our wedding night, causing me to be kidnapped by the thief. Although he still married me as his wife as planned, my reputation was completely ruined. Wherever I went, I was criticized by others. I spent my days in fear, not daring to go out, and over time, resentment grew. Relying on his guilt, I sowed discord between the two of them and secretly tried to kill them, but I failed every time and was exposed. That day, they cursed me for having a venomous heart and forced me to slit my throat to atone for my sins. Only after my death did I realize that I was merely the vicious female supporting character in a book, a stepping stone to bring them together, living this life over again. I will never repeat the same mistake. I followed the eunuchs from the palace and went inside. The sedan chair swayed as it passed through the palace paths and stopped outside the gates of Changchun Palace. The crimson gates looked noble and prominent. Kaiwan helped me out of the sedan chair. It was her first time entering the palace too, so she was somewhat excited. Yet she didn't dare to show it too obviously. Lowering her voice, she whispered in my ear,
"My lady, the palace we are staying in is so huge." "Oh, wait, that is not right. From now on, I must call you your majesty."
Listening to her cheerful voice, I took an extra look at her. In my past life, she was stabbed multiple times and died to protect me from the flower thief. Before she died, she even screamed for me to run and find my husband. But she didn't know that my husband was lurking just outside, completely indifferent. He was waiting. He was waiting for me to be captured, waiting to wipe out the flower thief's den in one fell swoop to claim the credit. I closed my eyes, forcing those scenes out of my mind, and gave a soft hum. As a response, Changchun Palace had already been tidied up, and the Imperial Household Department had assigned another batch of eunuchs to serve here. I gave them a stern warning to establish my authority, and then assigned them their duties. And so, the day passed. The emperor did not come that night. He only sent some rewards over. I was not surprised. He originally had no intention of marrying a successor empress. It was the Empress Dowager who insisted on finding a mother for the young crown prince. Unable to sway the Empress Dowager, he finally agreed. And because the Empress Dowager is my aunt, this seat of the Empress became mine. I sat on. I slept a good night's sleep. By the next day, as I was eating breakfast, a eunuch from the Empress Dowager's side came in to announce,
"Your Highness, His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, will be coming to pay his respects."
Hearing this, my chopsticks paused midair. I nodded slightly in acknowledgement. Once the eunuch left, Saihuan was clearly a bit uneasy. She whispered,
"Your Majesty, this servant has heard that the Crown Prince is extremely arrogant and domineering. He even made the Grand Tutor sick with anger. He is truly difficult to get along with."
I took another bite of my crab roe bun and said calmly, "He is just a child after all. The Crown Prince lost his mother the moment he was born, and the people in the palace have coddled and spoiled him. Naturally, his temperament is a bit lacking. He just needs proper discipline." But after finishing breakfast, I waited in Changchun Palace until the sun was high in the sky. Yet, there was no sign of the crown prince. The attending eunuchs nearby cast gloating looks at me. I sipped my tea with a calm expression, not particularly angry. After all, I hadn't quite figured out how to discipline a child anyway. Just when I thought the crown prince wouldn't be coming today, the eunuch's announcement rang out from outside.
"His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince has arrived."
As soon as the words fell, I raised my eyes to look, only to see a slender figure appear in my line of sight. The child was about 7 or 8 years old, with quite handsome features, but his dark eyes were filled with irritation, and his face was tense. He walked over huffily and blurted out,
So you are the new wife, father?
As he spoke, he lifted his face. The moment he saw my face clearly, his eyes shrank slightly. The rest of his words got caught in his throat. I nodded and glanced at the sunlight outside. Your Royal Highness, you've arrived at this hour. We can have lunch if we wait just a bit longer. I was hesitating over whether to ask him to stay for lunch, but hearing my words and seeing me look at the time outside, the young crown prince clearly misunderstood. His neck flushed red as he said,
It was the eunuchs who didn't wake me up. It is not that I wanted to be late.
I was instantly taken aback. I didn't even blame him for being late. Isn't it normal for children to oversleep? At his age, I also loved to sleep in the most. Seeing that I remained silent, the young crown prince's face turned from blue to white, and from white to black. As if unable to contain his anger, he added,
You are not my mother. Don't expect me to call you mother.
With that, he huffed and stormed off. After the crown prince left, I dismissed the surrounding eunuchs. The room fell rather quiet. Seeing this, Saihuan couldn't help but say,
Your Highness, you are so breathtakingly beautiful. If you smiled a bit more, the crown prince would surely grow close to you.
Is that so? I forced a smile at her. Saihuan instinctively took a step back. I seemed to realize something was amiss as well. Saihuan offered a strained smile.
Your Highness, please don't misunderstand. My legs just went weak from standing too long.
I didn't say a word. Since childhood, my own mother said, I looked very difficult to approach. Yet, my expression was merely indifferent. Everyone else thinks I have a terrible temper, but I am actually very calm. Yet, fate decided to play a joke on me. Later, I changed. I truly became venomous, as if that were the destiny of this face. Thinking of this, I sighed softly. Forget it. In this life, I have no entanglement with Joje, nor will I experience all of that again. He can investigate his cases, and I will remain my Empress. As for the Crown Prince, if I show a slightly better attitude, there shouldn't be any trouble, right? The Crown Prince's behavior in Changchun Palace quickly spread throughout the palace, but as the rumors spread, it became a story of me being displeased with his late morning greeting, showing a harsh and sour expression, which angered the Crown Prince and made him return to his palace. As the sun set, His Majesty arrived at Changchun Palace. When I heard the announcement, I was still reading records. Abruptly raising my head, a figure in bright yellow came into view. The man was not yet 30 years old, with a pair of sharp and deep phoenix eyes, defined features, and an imposing air of natural authority. Is he here to demand answers? My heart beat a little faster. I hurriedly put down the book, lowered my eyes, and bowed in greeting. This consort pays respects to your majesty.
Did the Empress meet with the Crown Prince today?
He did not tell me to rise, staring down at me from his high position. I did not dare to lie. The Crown Prince is young and undisciplined,
And indeed deserves proper guidance. But he is not someone just anyone can mistreat. Raise your face and answer.
Seeing that I kept my head lowered, the Emperor's voice grew cold. I quickly looked up, meeting the sovereign's icy phoenix eyes with trepidation. The grand hall was silent, the wind swaying the candle flames. The moment our eyes met, the Emperor's expression suddenly froze, but very quickly, his countenance returned to normal, though his tone remained as cold as before.
You are now the Empress. Teach and guide the Crown Prince with care, and we shall ensure your lifelong wealth and honor.
I froze for a moment. Doesn't everyone in the palace say I am harsh and mean? Why would he still let me discipline him? But the Emperor did not elaborate. Due to his heavy workload, he did not stay long in Changchun Palace, and soon returned to the Imperial study. But not long after he left, people from the palace Imperial Household Department arrived. They bestowed many gifts, saying it was the Emperor's decree. The Crown Prince had been reckless, so this was an apology. I was deeply surprised. Beside me, Kaihuan was delighted for me.
Your Highness, the Emperor truly has discerning eyes. He saw through it at a glance. Your Highness is a soft-hearted good woman.
I suppose that must be it. After all, I really was wrong. As for the heir to the throne, hearing the news, he smashed several cups in anger. Yet, the Emperor had him sent to my palace anyway. When we had dinner together, I thought he would be throwing a tantrum. I instinctively glanced at him. The boy, who was about to smash his bowl and chopsticks, froze in his tracks. He quietly stuffed a large mouthful of rice into his mouth. Because he swallowed too quickly, he began to cough violently.
Cough, cough.
Seeing this, I quickly stood up and gently patted his back to help him breathe, speaking softly, swallow slowly. But I didn't expect that, upon hearing my words, the little one's body would stiffen. After swallowing with great difficulty, he muttered hesitantly,
I don't care for your hypocrisy.
My face turned cold, and I said nothing more. The rest of the meal was eaten in silence, perhaps not expecting me to truly remain silent. The young Crown Prince, on the contrary, grew a bit uneasy. Glancing at me while pretending not to care, he asked.
Where is your son to sleep tonight?
Perhaps the emperor had sent someone to instruct him, as he finally showed a bit more decorum. Choose a room you like and sleep there. Oh. Over the next few days, I wondered if it was just my imagination, but the young crown prince's temperament seemed to have mellowed a bit when he wasn't reading. I considered playing a game of chess with him to keep him company. He glanced at me, and seeing my calm expression, his dark eyes darted around as he said,
I will definitely defeat you.
I hummed in response and quietly looked at him. Suddenly, his hand trembled and his black piece fell onto the board. He lost. I asked gently, would you like to play another round? His cheeks flushed red with annoyance.
A move made cannot be undone. I am no sore loser.
Amused by him, the corners of my mouth curled up slightly. Seeing this, the young crown prince's eyes flickered slightly, and he instinctively took a step back.
I'm going back to study.
Good. Indeed. Chess makes one wise. I had thought my bond with the crown prince had grown a bit deeper, but I soon realized I was mistaken. Another day passed. I went to pay my respects to the Empress Dowager, and upon my return, I saw the emperor's carriage waiting outside. Seeing me return, the chief eunuch of the palace respectfully came forward to greet me.
Your Highness, His Majesty has arrived and is waiting for you inside.
I replied politely, thank you for informing me, eunuch. I walked inside unhurriedly. Before I could even step into the inner hall, I heard the boy's anxious voice.
Father, your subject son does not wish to sleep in Changchun Palace anymore. The moment the Empress looks at me, she will surely make a sinister move against me. Last time she even smiled at me. Though she is peerlessly beautiful, your subject son dares to swear and guarantee that she is absolutely plotting some wicked scheme.
Before his words could fully fall, a gentle breeze swept in, and the crimson doors creaked open. Both people in the room turned their heads simultaneously. Unexpectedly, 3 pairs of eyes met.
Imperial father.
In an instant, the young crown prince let out a sharp scream. He quickly hid behind the emperor, revealing only half of his face. He glared at me with full confidence, knowing that in front of the sovereign, I would not dare to vent my anger on him. I bit my lip slightly, feeling somewhat speechless. Just as I was about to speak, I saw His Majesty reach out, grab the crown prince by the scruff of his neck, and drag him out. His dark brows were furrowed tightly, filled with simmering anger.
Nonsense. Running into your stepmother? Why have you not paid your respects? Have all the rules of etiquette we taught you been fed to the dogs?
Dragged out completely unprepared, the crown prince stumbled a few steps, his eyes widening in sheer disbelief. He likely had not expected that his imperial father, who had always doted on him, would treat him this way. I remained quiet and did not make a sound, but I also knew very well that the royal family values rules above all else. After all, I am now the empress of the formal palace. Even if the crown prince detests me, the rules cannot be broken. If busybodies were to catch wind of this, they would surely submit an impeachment against the crown prince. But the crown prince is still young and has been thoroughly spoiled, so he absolutely cannot comprehend this at present. After giving me a resentful glare, he cupped his hands in a reluctant bow.
This son pays respects to the Empress.
No need for such ceremony. As soon as I said this, the crown prince quickly straightened his back. He let out a loud huff as he brushed past me. Seeing this, the emperor's brow furrowed even deeper, as if he too had noticed something amiss. Once everyone had dispersed, the emperor let out a slow sigh.
We have been spoiling the crown prince too much lately. We have indulged him to the point that he forgets his manners.
I did not dare to chime in. An emperor's mind is as deep as the sea. They share a deep father-son bond, and I had no desire to play the villain. Perhaps because he did not get the response he expected. His Majesty raised his eyes, his deep, phoenix-like gaze sweeping over my face. What does the Empress think? My fingers gripped my skirt tightly. After a brief hesitation, I kept my eyes lowered and said, on the contrary, this concubine thinks the crown prince is pure and straightforward. He is quite endearing. Praise is never a mistake. As my voice faded, silence lingered in the room for a long time. I raised my eyes slightly to look, only to meet His Majesty's scrutinizing gaze. I did not flinch or look away. To tell the truth, although the crown prince was arrogant, he had never done anything to truly harm me. I genuinely did not dislike him. In the end, I was the first to look away. Yet, the emperor's expression visibly softened. I let out a quiet sigh of relief in my heart. Serving a ruler is like keeping company with a tiger. But this was the path I chose myself, and I would never regret it. Just when I thought this matter was finally behind us, the emperor spoke again.
You are indeed kind-hearted, but it is better for you to be a bit more strict.
I was utterly bewildered, but seeing how earnest His Majesty was, I could only summon my courage and agree. Understood, with my reply. Another dead silence fell over the room. I had thought he would do as he always did, just drop by to see me, and then head back to the imperial study to prepare for ordering lunch. This morning, I had specifically instructed Chinger that I wanted to try the longjing shrimp, crab meat tofu, exquisite peony, minced meat, 8 treasure calabash duck, and snow rosy soup.
Empress?
Hearing his voice, I instinctively knelt to pay my respects. This concubine kneels to see your majesty off. As the words left my mouth, I suddenly realized something was slightly amiss. Looking up, I saw the emperor staring at me with great interest.
I did not say I were leaving.
My face burned hot, and I wished I could shrink into a hole in the ground to hide. This concubine is clumsy with words, yet the emperor did not mind at all. An elusive smile flickered in his eyes.
No matter, it happens to be lunchtime. We shall join the Empress for lunch.
I shared a meal with His Majesty. The entire table was filled with my favorite dishes. I was a bit nervous at first, but seeing that the emperor was not as difficult to get along with as I had imagined, I relaxed a little. Without realizing it, I ate quite a lot. Sitting opposite me, His Majesty stared straight at me as I cleared dish after dish, seeming to hesitate to speak. But in the end, he said nothing. Completely oblivious, I happily devoured the food. The meals in this imperial city were far more luxurious than those at my family's manor. Once lunch was over, the emperor finally took his leave, feeling rather full. I took Chinger for a stroll in the Imperial Garden, only to run into 2 old acquaintances on the long avenue by chance. Zhou, dressed in vermilion official robes, looked quite handsome. By his side was a girl dressed as a guard. They were in the middle of a conversation. The moment they caught sight of me, the 2 of them, with tacit understanding, stopped talking. I stared at them coldly. This was the first time I had run into them since my rebirth. I thought that since those things hadn't happened in this lifetime, my resentment would have faded, but a wave of disgust still surged uncontrollably in my heart. I had forgotten the pain of having my throat slit, but that piercing hatred remained deeply engraved. I wished I could chop off their heads too, but on my face, I maintained my composure as usual. Zhou was the first to furrow his brows.
Xue Lanyu, why are you here?
He had probably just closed the case and brought Zhu Xinyao straight into the palace. He didn't know that I had already entered the palace and been crowned empress, but he was by no means a fool. Seeing that my attire was imperial court dress, his expression suddenly changed.
You've entered the palace.
Without denying it, I nodded slightly. Chinger, standing beside me, was displeased and spoke up.
Lord Zhou, why do you not kneel upon encountering Her Majesty the Empress?
She had originally been very fond of this prospective son-in-law of the family. He was a man of striking appearance, had passed the imperial examinations as the 3rd-place graduate, and had become the vice minister of the Court of Judicial Review at a young age. In terms of capability and talent, he was indeed among the very best in the capital, but ever since he repeatedly delayed our betrothal for the sake of investigating cases, Chinger had harbored quite a few complaints. At first, I didn't blame him either. The truth of human lives was indeed important, but he absolutely should not have used me as bait, solving the case at the cost of my reputation and Chinger's life. The past rushes back like a surging tide, and that blinding pool of blood still seems to be right before my eyes. I could barely suppress my rage. My fingernails dug into my palms. The slight sting brought me back to my senses. I looked up, my tone turning cold. Lord Zhou, you have quite the nerve. I did not expect that I, who had always been gentle with him, would speak so harshly. Zhou froze for a moment, disbelief flashing in his eyes, but he quickly came to his senses, lifted his robe, and knelt on the ground.
This official pays respects to Your Majesty the Empress.
Beside him, Zhu Xinyao clearly had not expected that my status would be so high now. Her expression shifted repeatedly, but in the end, she still knelt down. This lowly one pays respects to Your Majesty the Empress, a mere woman. Why are you appearing in the attire of an imperial guard? Are you trying to deceive the emperor? I exposed her identity without showing any mercy, pinning a heavy accusation on her. Zhou instinctively looked up to speak on behalf of Zhu Xinyao.
Your Majesty, please be the judge. Miss Zhu is this official's assistant. It is merely inconvenient to investigate cases in women's clothing, which is why she changed into the guard uniform. Now that a major case has been solved, the Emperor is still waiting for this official's report.
I looked coldly at the murderous intent hidden deep in their eyes and said indifferently, "So that is how it is. Then you may go."
Thank you, Your Majesty the Empress.
As Zhou led Zhu Xinyao past me, after rising, the man's footsteps paused. He turned his head slightly to look over, complex emotions swirling in his eyes. But I did not look back. Only when they had walked far away did my expression turn completely cold. Little did I know, at the corner of the palace wall, a small figure was staring intently in this direction, his eyes wide with shock. With my mood ruined, I did not go to the Imperial Garden anymore and went straight back to my palace. For the next few days, perhaps still angry about that day, the young crown prince did not show his face before me. I was quite at leisure, so I casually asked What has the crown prince been doing these past few days? After all, I had promised the emperor before. I couldn't just ignore him completely. Seeing me ask, Chinger answered honestly.
His Royal Highness has been studying at the Imperial Academy these past few days.
Is that so? I put down my book. After a moment's thought, I knew I had to at least make a polite gesture. So I said, let's go. We'll bring some food to the Imperial Academy to visit the crown prince. Hearing this, Chinger hurriedly complied. The Imperial Academy was built outside the palace. I sent someone to request permission from the emperor. The emperor granted it, preparing a carriage for me, with the Imperial Guard clearing the way. It was a grand procession. Fortunately, the Imperial Academy was near the Imperial City. Upon arriving at the Imperial Academy, I stepped down from the carriage and ordered the Imperial Guard to wait outside. Only then did I enter the Imperial Academy with Chinger. Having received the news, the Chancellor of the Imperial Academy led everyone out to welcome me. I waved my hand. No need for such formalities, everyone. I am only here today to visit the crown prince. The chancellor was over 50 years old, with a goatee that made him look very gentle. He bowed to guide me.
Yes, Your Majesty. This way, please. His Royal Highness has been performing exceptionally well at the Academy.
I nodded slightly and followed him inside. The others followed behind us, chattering about how well the crown prince was doing. But before I even reached the martial arts field, I heard the sound of fighting coming from inside.
How dare you provoke me?
I immediately recognized the voice of the crown prince, Zhao Yuanzhao. The martial arts field was spacious. Walking inside, I saw it at a glance. Someone coughed lightly.
Your Royal Highness.
Suddenly hearing the voice, the crown prince said, impatiently.
What are you shouting for?
As he spoke, he lifted his head, suddenly meeting my calm gaze. The boy's pupils dilated, and his movements instantly froze. The boy on the ground, beaten to the point of desperation, took advantage of this moment to recklessly flip the crown prince over. Caught off guard, he fell heavily to the ground, making a loud thud. My brow furrowed, and I quickly stepped forward. But before I could reach out to help him, the crown prince had already scrambled up, grimacing in pain. I thought he would accuse the other boy of some wrongdoing that had provoked him to fight, but seeing me staring intently at him, the young prince hesitated to speak, his face slowly flushing red. Only after a long pause did he mutter,
I just won't lower myself to his level.
I, not quite understanding. I reached my hand out to him. Seeing this, he instinctively flinched back, looking at me warily. But in the next moment, he watched blankly as I gently patted away the dust on his hem, leaving him momentarily stunned. I spoke softly. You are the crown prince. Being merciful is a good thing, but if others offend Imperial Majesty, they must be punished. Hearing this, the boy suddenly looked up, meeting my warm gaze. He seemed somewhat startled and uncertain, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he remained silent. I did not press him, only turning a calm gaze toward the students, watching nearby. What happened? Naturally, they did not dare to hide anything, and stammered out the story. It turned out the crown prince had an archery match with the vice minister's son. The vice minister's son suggested they play for stakes, so he put up a jade pendant given by his mother, while the crown prince put up a jade ruyi scepter. In the end, the crown prince won, but the vice minister's son went back on his word, saying the pendant was a gift from his mother, and that the crown prince did not lack such things. Anyway, this displeased the crown prince, though he did not lose his temper right away. Who would have thought the boy would foolishly add,
Your Highness, you don't have a birth mother, so it is fine if you don't understand how I feel, but you can't just snatch away someone else's treasure.
They were both only 7 or 8 years old and spoiled at home, so they started fighting over a disagreement. After hearing this, I noticed the crown prince clenching his fists, clearly burning with anger. After pondering for a moment, I turned to the chancellor and said, pass on my command. The son of Vice Minister Liu has behaved with utter insolence, insubordination. However, considering his young age, he shall be punished with 10 slaps to the face and confined to his residence for 1 month. Dripping with cold sweat, the chancellor nodded. Yes. With that said, I turned back to look at the crown prince. Let's go. Back to the palace. Crown prince? He gave me a silent look, but in the end, he did not refuse. We returned to the palace and boarded a carriage. The young boy sat far away from me, not uttering a single word. I was worried about his fall earlier, not knowing if he was injured, so I took the initiative to speak. But the crown prince interrupted me. He turned his head and stared straight into my eyes.
Are you going to complain to Imperial Father?
I was taken aback for a moment. Complain about Vice Minister Liu. This would be making the father pay for the son's debt. However, the dignity of the imperial family indeed could not be violated. I nodded. I will speak to the emperor about this matter. I will certainly not let you suffer any injustice. Crown Prince. Hearing this, the Crown Prince's eyes flickered slightly. He spoke in a low voice.
I thought you would. He did not finish his sentence.
I asked, but he refused to say more. He turned his head away and said somewhat awkwardly,
It is nothing, thank you.
I smiled. This is only my duty. After the Crown Prince returned to his palace, I summoned the Imperial physician to examine his injuries. Fortunately, he only had bruises in a few places and was otherwise unharmed. When applying the medicine to him, the little Crown Prince's ears turned bright red, and he awkwardly dodged my hand.
For such a trivial matter, I can do it myself.
I held down his knee and gently scolded him. Don't move. It will be done soon. Little Crown Prince. He stopped moving, stealing glances at me with those dark eyes. Seeing my serious expression, the little Crown Prince's gaze shifted slightly. Once the medicine was applied, I set the medicine bottle aside and instructed, get some proper rest. He responded in a muffled voice, no longer as resistant and distant as before. The incident at the Imperial Academy soon reached the Emperor's ears, but the Emperor flew into a great rage. According to the palace servants, the Emperor was in an extremely foul mood today, for some reason, and upon hearing of this matter, he smashed a purple clay teacup in the Imperial study and roared,
How utterly insolent! You are all insolent.
Minister Liu knelt in the hall, trembling with fear. In the end, the Emperor harshly rebuked Minister Liu for failing to educate his son properly, stating that if he could not teach his son well, he need not attend court in the future. I was not surprised to hear this news. The Emperor was naturally very protective of his own. He can scold the Crown Prince, but others cannot. What caught me by surprise, however, was that the Emperor came to my bedchamber. As I draped a robe over my shoulders and rose to greet him, I felt a trace of astonishment in my heart. He never stayed the night at my palace. This concubine pays respects to. The Emperor did not respond. I knelt on the floor, my knees feeling freezing cold. The light in the palace was dim and hazy. I was trying to guess his purpose for coming, but in the next moment, I heard the Emperor's cold voice.
Empress, how dare you? How dare you commit adultery with Zhou before entering the palace?
The moment those words fell, it was like a sudden clap of thunder on dry land, instantly leaving me utterly stunned. I doubted my own ears. In this lifetime, I had not been betrothed to Zhou at all, even though both families had previously intended to do so. He had delayed it time and again, and this marriage had long fallen through. The Emperor's aura was heavy and oppressive. Cold sweat broke out on my back, yet I still calmly said, This concubine does not understand your Majesty's words. In the next moment, my chin was pinched and lifted. I was forced to look up, meeting the Emperor's eyes, which were filled with rage. The man's voice was like ice.
Zhou publicly impeached you today, claiming you lack personal virtue, and that you had physical intimacy with him before entering the palace. He even produced a handkerchief as proof. He was originally supposed to marry you, but you became angry that his case-solving delayed the wedding date, and entered the palace in a fit of rage. He said he is willing to take responsibility for you, and requested an imperial decree to depose the Empress.
No man could tolerate such a thing, let alone the Emperor. My face turned pale. I never expected Zhou to suddenly launch such an attack. A thought suddenly flashed through my mind, like lightning. Could it be that he was reborn as well? My heart suddenly began to race wildly. Zhou was the vice minister of the Court of Judicial Review, who had just solved a bizarre case. He judged cases impartially and spoke up for justice. When a person speaks the truth too often, even if they tell a lie once in a while, it will be taken as the truth. What is more, this world is already harsh on women. A woman whose chastity is questioned, by what right or virtue could she remain the Empress? Even if only for the sake of royal dignity, the Emperor would secretly put her to death. This is an attempt on my life. How utterly malicious. Suppressing the urge to hack Zhou into 1,000 pieces, I forced myself to gather my thoughts. Even if it cost my life, I had to fight for myself. Your Majesty, before I was married, I did indeed lend Zhou a handkerchief, but I have never crossed any line with him. Otherwise, even if I had the greatest audacity in the world, I would not have dared to enter the palace. Furthermore, I did not become betrothed to him, not because he was busy solving cases, but because he and that Miss Xue, who dresses as a man by his side, were far too close. With a lone man and a lone woman, it is hard to guarantee feelings wouldn't develop. I did not want to settle for a half-hearted relationship, which is why I chose to enter the palace. Moreover, if he truly had feelings for me, how could he publicly petition to depose the Empress? He is clearly trying to force me to my death. I beg your Majesty to look into this clearly. By the time I finished speaking, I was weeping bitterly, tears streaming down my cheeks, as if I had suffered the greatest injustice in the world. After listening to my words, the Emperor's expression remained very grim, but he did not speak again. My heart was pounding like a drum. I boldly took the man's hand, unable to care about much else at this point. When I looked up, tears still clung to my eyelashes. If your Majesty does not believe me, I am willing to serve. Your Majesty, Or you may call for the examination matrons to prove my innocence. By the end of my plea, I closed my eyes in humiliation. Suddenly, my hand was held in return. I looked up in alarm, rising with the help of the Emperor's strength. The man's deep voice resonated in my ears.
I believe the Empress?
I stared at him blankly, my heart suddenly skipping a beat. I had prepared myself to attend to him tonight, to prove my innocence. But to my surprise, the Emperor did nothing at all. He only lay on the bed with me, wearily closing his eyes. I waited for a long time, but nothing happened. I quietly stole a glance at him. He had been publicly cuckolded in front of all his ministers. Yet, he actually believed me just like that. Or was he planning to find another excuse to execute me? As if sensing my gaze, the Emperor opened his eyes. But he didn't turn to look at me, asking, "What is it?" I shook my head. Suddenly, an idea came to mind. I sat up, raising my hands to gently massage his temples. "Is your Majesty tired? I know a bit of medicine." I had taught this to myself in my past life, when I was confined to the inner chambers. Otherwise, that dead, silent courtyard and those strange looks would have been enough to drive me to death. I massaged him a few times, and the Emperor's expression visibly softened. Seeing this, I massaged him with even more enthusiasm. I had heard people say before that the Emperor cared most about state affairs, spending 20 hours a day reading memorials. Though he had few offspring, he possessed a noble and righteous spirit. Under his rule, the people lived and worked in peace, and the Dayan dynasty enjoyed peace and prosperity. Such a person was truly admirable from the bottom of one's heart. After massaging him for a while, I thought the Emperor had fallen asleep. I slowly withdrew my hands, preparing to go to sleep, only to hear the man speak. "Do you have a grudge against Joji?" I gasped in shock. After a moment of thought, I said vaguely, "Perhaps Joji thought I was jealous. He favors Miss Ju, and feared I would use my status to target his beloved. That must be why he resorted to this low trick. But he didn't know that your Majesty is exceptionally wise and sagacious. How could he possibly deceive you?" The Emperor. He didn't speak again. I didn't know whether he believed me or not, and I remained anxious all night. By the next day, the Emperor had already left for the morning court. Early on, as I was plotting in my mind how to deal with Joji, I heard the voice of a palace attendant from outside the door.
His Highness the Crown Prince has arrived.
I looked over in surprise. At the entrance of the palace, the young boy, dressed in a blue round-collared robe, strode toward me.
Your son pays respects to your Majesty, the Empress.
He never called me Imperial Mother, and I didn't mind either. I beckoned to him. "Have you had breakfast, Crown Prince? Come and have some more." Hearing my words, the Crown Prince stared at me intently. Seeing that I was safe and sound, he nodded slowly. I had the palace attendants bring him a set of bowl and chopsticks, and then placed a crystal bun in his bowl. He looked at the crystal bun in his bowl in silence for a moment, then looked at me again. After a brief hesitation, he finally spoke.
I heard Imperial Father came yesterday. Did he make things difficult for you?
As soon as he finished speaking, I was taken aback. As the Crown Prince, he probably already knew what had happened in court. No, wait, the news must have spread throughout the capital by now. Seeing my reaction, the Crown Prince's ears flushed red, and he quickly added,
Don't misunderstand. I was just asking casually. It is just that Joji is truly despicable, ruining someone's reputation out of thin air. And to think he is supposed to be a judge of cases. I think he is only good at fabricating false evidence.
The Crown Prince babbled on, while I listened quietly, a wave of warmth washing over my heart. I said softly, "Thank you," caught off guard by my "thank you." The rest of his words got stuck in his throat. He silently took a bite of the crystal bun and muttered,
I think I finally understand why you hate him so much. If it were me, I would have had him beaten to death long ago.
I let out a bitter laugh. Joji is a pillar of the state. How could he be killed just like that? I waited for the Emperor's judgment. An explanation had to be given for this matter. But to everyone's surprise, the Emperor did not fly into a rage. He merely summoned Joji's father for an audience. In less than the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, the man left the palace. When Chinger spoke to me about it, she looked panicked.
Your Highness, what do you think His Majesty intends to do?
This Master Zhou is truly wicked to harm you in such a way. My eyelashes fluttered slightly. It was impossible not to be afraid. This matter actually had nothing to do with the truth. It all depended on the Emperor's whim. Regardless of how innocent I was, the royal family's reputation was always of paramount importance. The process of waiting for news was exceptionally agonizing. I prepared myself for the worst. If I were indeed sentenced to death, I would definitely see Joji one last time and drag him down to hell with me. Just as I was feeling anxious and uneasy, a young eunuch came running in from outside.
Your Highness!
Can't you see Her Highness's trouble? What are you shouting for?
Chinger's nerves were equally strained, and she couldn't help but turn around and scold him. I waved my hand. It is fine. What is it? The young eunuch belonged to my palace. Xiao Chuan knelt on the ground and said,
Master Zhou has been kneeling at the palace gates since this afternoon, saying he has committed the crime of deceiving the emperor.
My eyes widened slightly. He actually recanted.
What is going on? Speak clearly.
Qing'er was the first to react, extremely excited, and hastily pressed for details. Hearing this, Xiao Chuan nodded.
Master Zhou took off his official robes, kneeling at the palace gates to repent, saying that out of personal selfishness, he slandered the current empress and was unfit to be an official.
I narrowed my eyes. Could the matter really be resolved so easily? In this world, rumors are like swift arrows, enough to leave a person bruised and battered, falling into hell. Especially when it concerns a woman's chastity. It is always a topic of relish for others to explain. No one would believe it. They only want to believe what they wish to believe. My heart bled with hatred, yet I was utterly helpless. He is, after all, the male lead of the book. How could he easily fall into such a plight? Sure enough, Xiao Chuan stole a glance at me, swallowed hard, and then said,
But many commoners are pleading for him, saying it was because
Because of what?
Qing'er grew anxious.
they say it was because your highness was vain and greedy for wealth, and that you broke off the engagement with the Zhou family, which forced Lord Zhou to harbor resentment. This matter is not entirely Lord Zhou's fault alone.
After Xiao Chuan finished speaking, he lowered his head completely. The bedchamber fell into a dead silence. After a long while, I finally spoke. What did the emperor say?
Considering that he solved the bizarre case, the emperor sentenced him to 30 strokes of the cane, stripped him of his official post, and ordered him to return home.
He wasn't sentenced to death. To survive even the crime of deceiving the emperor, he truly deserves to be the so-called male lead. After dismissing everyone, I endured and endured, but in the end, I could not hold it in. I picked up a teacup and smashed it hard onto the carpet. The carpet absorbed the heavy impact. The teacup did not break. I picked it up and threw it again. After doing this a few times, I squatted on the floor, silently cursing Zhou to die of his severe injuries. Just then, a deep voice came from behind me.
It seems the Empress is not satisfied with our decision.
Hearing the voice so suddenly, I gasped in surprise and stood up abruptly, only to step on the teacup. Losing my balance, I fell straight forward, crashing into a firm chest. A hand wrapped around my waist, holding me steady. The scent of ambergris filled my nose. I felt a bit embarrassed and flustered. Your Majesty, the Emperor looked down at me.
The Empress of the Central Palace should be more dignified.
I gave a soft reply. Once I was standing steady, the Emperor glanced at the teacup that had been repeatedly thrown on the floor and let out a helpless sigh.
He has just solved a major case. We cannot execute him yet.
I did not expect to receive such an answer. I stared at him in daze. Did your Majesty want to execute him? But he is a meritorious official.
A meritorious official.
The Emperor looked back. He was exceptionally handsome to begin with, and his phoenix eyes were narrow and deep. Hearing my words, he curled his lips into a smirk.
One who deceives the Emperor and attempts to ruin the innocence of a guiltless person does not deserve such a title.
My heart stirred slightly. Your Majesty is wise. Meeting my sparkling eyes, the man's gaze darkened slightly, and the tips of his ears turned a faint red. He turned his face away.
I know.
I did not know what methods the Emperor had used to make Zhou change his story. I was extremely curious and dropped hints several times before he finally relented and let slip a single sentence.
It depends on whether a person cares more about their own life or the lives of their entire clan.
I understood instantly. Is this the benefit of holding absolute power? With just a casual word, one can decide a person's life or death, or clear someone's innocence. Zhou's scheme was incredibly malicious. He was certain I would have no way to defend myself, but he never expected the Emperor would actually help me. My eyes darted slightly, and I began to subtly speak ill of him. Your Majesty, this man is highly vengeful. I merely did not get betrothed to him. Yet, he was malicious enough to go this far. Your Majesty must remain on guard against him. Hearing this, the Emperor turned his head to glance at me. Those phoenix eyes were too sharp, as if they could see right through my thoughts. In an instant, I gave an innocent smile. The Emperor paused, then withdrew his gaze.
Good.
The days that followed passed peacefully. The Crown Prince often came to my quarters, but strangely, he kept staring at my stomach. I did not understand what the Crown Prince was looking at. When I caught him in the act, the Crown Prince's face instantly flushed red.
It is nothing.
I frowned slightly. Seeing this, a flicker of guilt flashed in the Crown Prince's eyes, and he spoke hesitantly.
The palace mama said that if you give birth to a little prince, you will start targeting me.
I paused, then corrected him. How could that be? Regardless of whether I have a child or not, you will always be the Crown Prince, I said gently.
Really?
He was still young, after all, unable to hide too many of his thoughts. The young boy looked at me with eyes full of uncertainty and doubt, underneath which lay a faint, barely perceptible trace of hope. I reached out and gently ruffled his hair. Of course, that is why you must study hard and practice martial arts, so you can share your imperial father's burdens in the future.
So this is what you were leading up to.
He muttered under his breath. He detested studying the most. All those tedious classical texts only made him sleepy. I smiled faintly and said nothing more. Autumn passed and winter came. In the blink of an eye, the end of the year arrived, bringing the capital's first snowfall. An imperial banquet was held in the palace, and all the noble families attended with their households. I saw Zhou once again. He had entered the palace with his father. His complexion was quite poor, lacking any of the high spirits he had after cracking the flower thief case. Meeting again, after 3 months, I looked down upon him from my high seat. The look he directed at me was highly complex. During this period, I had ordered people to spread rumors that he had stopped at nothing to solve the case, conspiring with Xue Lanyu to cause the death of an innocent woman just to capture the flower thief. His methods were described as utterly insidious. It wasn't as if I made this up out of thin air. In my past life, I was the one who suffered deeply from it. Yet, because he was willing to marry me afterward, the world did not blame him at all. Instead, they praised his deep devotion, claiming he sacrificed his own happiness for justice. Now, things were different. To regain his official post, he could not possibly ignore the flower thief case. The path that had led to success in his past life became his only choice. Except this time, the one he harmed was a concubine's daughter of the Shen family. She was beautiful, but of low status, making it easy for him to suppress the matter. Fortunately, I had asked my father to have men keep watch, hoping to save that poor girl. But my father's men arrived too late. The girl was unyielding. She bashed her head against a wall to prove her innocence. Thinking of this, I lowered my eyelashes. I drank a cup of wine, and then another. Beside me, Emperor Zhao Yuanzhao noticed my actions and glanced at me gently.
Empress, drinking too much is bad for your health.
The grief and anger in my eyes had not yet been hidden. But when I raised my eyes, they turned into confusion. Why is this world so unjust? That girl's bones are already turning to dust in the yellow earth. Yet the culprit attends the banquet in high spirits. Everything I did seemed to mean nothing to him. Between the flower thief case and the life of a concubine's daughter, it seemed everyone felt the flower thief case was more important. They say those who achieve great things do not worry about trifles, and that the Shen family's daughter could even be considered to have made a contribution. I felt deeply frustrated, lowering my eyes. I stood up and said, "This consort feels a bit unwell. I will go out to get some fresh air." The emperor granted permission. At the banquet, seeing me leave the table, the crown prince's eyes darted around, and he quietly put down his cup. The moonlight was gentle and bright. I walked to the edge of the golden water bridge and looked down. The surface of the lake was shimmering. I don't know how much time passed, but footsteps suddenly came from behind me. I turned my head to look, and it was actually Zhou. The man stopped a person's distance away from me, looking at me with a gaze mixed with hatred and resentment. Yet, within it, there also seemed to be some inexplicable affection. We had known each other since youth and had once promised our hearts to each other. Every time he went far away to solve a case, he would bring back all kinds of rare trinkets for me. The young man's eyes, looking at me, were sincere and bright.
Lanyu, after your coming-of-age ceremony, I will marry you, okay?
When he said this, the tips of his ears were bright red. Nervous, yet full of anticipation, I shyly turned my back to him. Just as he was starting to look disappointed, I suddenly looked back with a smile. All right. The flowing water had feelings, and the falling blossoms had intent. But in the end, it became a fight to the death.
Lanyu, you shouldn't have entered the palace suddenly.
He broke the dead silence. I raised an eyebrow and asked bluntly, "Why? Are you afraid this empress will come after you?" Hearing me refer to myself as this empress, Zhou's expression changed slightly, and a trace of loneliness actually appeared in his eyes. He took a step toward me.
No, in this lifetime, I didn't plan to use you as bait. If you had just waited a little longer, we would still have married.
I found it laughable. In our past life, he and Xue Lanyu had driven me to suicide together. Now, he was suddenly acting deeply in love. I feigned a touched expression. Seeing this, Zhou's expression softened slightly, and he took another step toward me. Once he was close enough, the corners of my mouth curled into a smirk. My eyes completely cold, I softly exposed his facade. Zhou. Oh, Zhou, you don't regret anything. You're deliberately trying to get close to me, so the emperor will believe we are having an affair, aren't you? In your dreams. The moment those words left my mouth, the man's pupils contracted slightly. Before he could react, I grabbed his hand and gave myself a hard push. In the next instant, my body fell backward, uncontrollably, plunging violently into the lake. With a splash, a huge plume of water sprayed up. Not far away, the crown prince, who had been watching, went pale with shock.
Imperial Mother!
The freezing lake water choked my nose and throat, causing extreme discomfort. But I didn't know how to swim, so I could only let my body sink. Very soon, I felt a dark figure swimming toward me, and they pulled me up onto the shore. I coughed up a mouthful of water, gasping for breath in a miserable state. The young crown prince squatted beside me, untied his cloak, and draped it over me.
Imperial Mother, are you all right?
The maidservant beside him was soaked through. He must have ordered her, knowing she could swim, to save me. I was shivering violently from the cold, my lips pale, unable to utter a single word.
Zaman, summon the Imperial physicians immediately.
Seeing this, the young crown prince calmly gave the order, telling the maidservants beside him to help me back to Changchun Palace to change my clothes. Before leaving, he glared fiercely at Zhou Jie.
Find Zhou Jie for us and escort him to Imperial Father.
Guards immediately took the order and pinned Zhou Jie's arms back. I glanced at Zhou Jie out of the corner of my eye, my gaze darkening. Not long after I returned to Changchun Palace, the emperor arrived, seeing my bloodless lips and my body trembling all over. The emperor's sharp brows furrowed tightly. He suddenly turned and demanded of the imperial physician, "How is the empress?" The imperial physician knelt on the ground and replied in fear and trepidation.
To answer your majesty, her majesty, the empress has a weak constitution, and she has fallen into the water. The winter lake water is freezing and harmful. Its entry into her body is a sign of an impending high fever.
Hearing this, the emperor's brow darkened, a faint trace of anger appearing.
Where is Zhou Jie?
He is kneeling outside the hall, claiming he is innocent. There is also a young lady pleading for him.
Tell them to get in here.
Indeed, not long after, I saw Zhou Jie and Zhu Xinyao. Zhu Xinyao stared at me with hatred. Zhou Jie's eyes also filled with anxiety. I weakly reached out and grabbed the emperor's hand. As he looked down at me, my tears fell in streams. Your Majesty, Lord Zhou has always harbored resentment toward me. Seeing me alone, he wanted to take my life again. I was so frightened.
Your Highness, mind your words.
Zhou Jie interrupted me. Within the palace walls,
Why would I push your Highness for no reason?
without cause, I let out a cold laugh. Looking at him with sorrow, I merely did not betroth myself to you. You were slandered on the spot for having an affair with me, and then you tried to kill me. Could you have forgotten this, Lord Zhou? I do not know how I have offended you. To make Lord Zhou hate me so much, his crime, which had been recognized by imperial authority back then, now became the very stone that crushed him. Zhou Jie's lips trembled, as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. The matter of rebirth was far too absurd. In my past life, I indeed moved against him, but in this lifetime, I had done nothing. Instead, it was he who had repeatedly targeted me. Beside him, Zhu Xinyao grew anxious. Xue Lanyu, you clearly framed Lord Zhou. I saw it all. You fell in by yourself. I looked at her in feigned surprise. Miss Zhu, you are a mere commoner. How did you enter the palace? Could it be that you are here to commit an assassination? Hearing these words, Zhu Xinyao's face instantly turned pale.
How dare you?
Beside them, the young crown prince spoke up righteously.
Father, how can any random nobody dare to address Her Highness by her name? Your son and the palace attendants nearby saw it with our own eyes. It was Zhou Jie who had the audacity to push Her Majesty the Empress.
Everyone present changed their expressions. The entire palace knew that I was only the successor empress, and the young crown prince had never been close to me. His words had to be the truth. As the crown prince's words fell, silence filled the hall. The emperor was absolutely furious. He ordered,
Zhou Jie has attempted to harm the Empress. His intentions are treasonous. Throw him into the imperial prison to be executed on a chosen day. As for Zhu Xiangyao, bestow death upon her immediately.
Zhou Jie still wanted to explain, but he was dragged away by the imperial guards. Having obtained this outcome, my tightly strung nerves finally relaxed. My body went limp, and I fainted before falling into unconsciousness. I vaguely saw both the emperor and the crown prince rushing toward me together. I had a dream. In the dream, I was drifting outside, watching Zhou Jie and Zhu Xinyao crack one major case after another and receive grand rewards. Their wedding was exceptionally grand, praised by everyone, but only I could see that they were stepping on piles of flesh and bones beneath their feet. Those were the people who had died because of them. To uncover the truth, there might be bloodshed and there might be sacrifices, but it should not be a deliberate setup orchestrated by others, using the blood of innocent people solely to pave the way for another person's success.
Imperial Mother, please wake up.
Suddenly, A childish voice came from beside me. I struggled to wake up from the nightmare. What came into view was the close-up of the young boy's handsome face. Crown Prince. I opened my mouth, but my voice was very hoarse. I leaned against the headboard. I took the teacup from the emperor's hand and drank it down slowly. Once I finished drinking, Zhao Huayin took the teacup away, his voice unusually gentle as he asked,
Is the Empress feeling any better?
I nodded silently and stole a glance at him. The man looked perfectly composed. It seemed he didn't suspect anything. I let out a sigh of relief in my heart. Instead, it was the crown prince beside us who reminded his imperial father.
To avoid any complications from further delay, there is no better time than now.
This spoke right to my heart. I looked at the emperor expectantly. Is that so? Kill him quickly. Kill him quickly. Meeting my direct gaze, a look of helplessness appeared in the emperor's eyes. He said softly.
Once the Empress's illness has improved a bit.
I lowered my head in disappointment. I remained ill for over a month. The imperial physician said recovering from an illness is like pulling silk from a cocoon and required me to recuperate for another month. With great difficulty, I finally recovered completely. I changed into a low-profile outfit and personally led my people to the imperial prison. During this period of being reduced to a prisoner, Zhou Ji had clearly not been having an easy time. His eyes were deeply sunken and his hair was disheveled. Upon seeing me, his eyes flickered slightly, but in the end, he only spat out, "You won." Without saying another word, I tossed a dagger to him. Zhou Ji, for the sake of our past acquaintance, slit your throat to atone for your crimes. History was repeating itself, except this time. The one slitting his throat was replaced by Zhou Ji. Across from me, Zhou Ji stared deeply at me. After a long silence, he finally picked up the sharp dagger with a trembling hand. I took a step back, and the guards shielded me. Seeing this, Zhou Ji curled his lips in a smirk. The next moment, he slit his own throat. Blood splattered from his neck, dazzlingly crimson. I forced myself to wait until he drew his last breath before leaving. As for Zhu Xinyao, she had already been ordered to commit suicide by the emperor that very day. According to the palace servants, she had also chosen a dagger. It was exactly as I had wished. When I walked out of the imperial prison, to my surprise, the young crown prince was pacing back and forth. Seeing me come out, he hesitated for a moment, but still stepped forward.
Father sent me to ask Imperial Mother to return for dinner.
Under the warm spring sun, the youth's eyes were so clear and so sincere. My heart warmed, and I took the initiative to hold his hand, smiling gently. All right. Caught off guard by me holding his hand, the young crown prince was startled, but the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curve upward. For the days to come, may the spring sun shine bright, and may blessings and longevity abound.